Dr. Sarah Chun watched the alien diplomat's 6 eyes blink in sequence as it studied the data pad before her. The Zephyrian's blue-tinted skin seemed to shimmer under the harsh lights of Research Station Omega-7, humanity's first joint scientific facility with an alien species. "Your blood chemistry remains unusual," Ambassador Crixtal said, its voice carrying the musical quality that all Zephyrians possessed. "We require additional samples for our ongoing analysis." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her expression neutral. For 3 months, the Zephyrians had been conducting what they called routine biological compatibility studies on the human crew. What had started as voluntary blood draws had become increasingly frequent and mandatory. "Of course, Ambassador," Sarah replied, rolling up her sleeve. "Though I must ask, have our previous samples provided the information you need?" Crixtal's middle eyes focused on her while the other 4 continued scanning the room. "Human physiology presents certain anomalies. We must understand these variations to ensure proper medical care during our partnership." The lie came so smoothly that Sarah almost believed it. Almost. But she had noticed things the other humans hadn't. The way the Zephyrian medical staff exchanged glances when they thought no one was looking. The hushed conversations that stopped whenever a human entered the room. The fact that their routine tests were becoming anything but routine. As the Zephyrian medic inserted the needle into her arm, Sarah watched the dark red liquid flow into the collection tube. She had always been proud of her heritage. Her grandmother had survived the Hong Kong flu pandemic of 1968. Her great-grandfather had lived through the Spanish flu of 1918. Their blood ran in her veins, carrying the genetic memory of humanity's struggles against disease. "Thank you, Dr. Chun," the medic said in heavily accented English. "You may return to your duties." Sarah nodded and left the medical bay, but instead of heading to her laboratory, she took a detour through the station's maintenance corridors. She had discovered these passages weeks ago during a routine inspection, and they had proven invaluable for moving around undetected. She made her way to Section C, where the Zephyrian research facilities were located. The aliens had insisted on separate laboratories for their work, claiming their equipment was too sensitive for human use. But Sarah suspected there were other reasons for the separation. Through a ventilation grate, she could see into the main Zephyrian lab. What she witnessed made her blood run cold, literally and figuratively. Dozens of human blood samples lined the walls in refrigerated units. But these weren't the small vials she expected to see. These were large containers, each holding enough blood to fill several human bodies. The Zephyrians had been collecting far more blood than they had admitted. In the center of the room, 3 Zephyrian scientists worked around a sophisticated piece of equipment she had never seen before. They were injecting human blood into small creatures that looked like a cross between mice and lizards. The creatures writhed in pain for a moment, then went still. "Specimen 847 shows the same resistance pattern," one of the scientists reported in their native language. Sarah's translator implant converted the words, but the tone was unmistakably frustrated. "The human blood component continues to neutralize our compound. Increase the concentration," another scientist ordered. "Their resistance cannot be infinite." Sarah's heart began to race as the implications became clear. The Zephyrians weren't studying human blood for compatibility. They were trying to overcome human resistance to something they were planning to use against humanity. She crawled backward through the maintenance shaft, her mind racing. She had to get this information to Captain Morrison, but she couldn't risk being caught. The Zephyrians had made it clear that certain areas of the station were off-limits to humans, and being found spying would raise questions she wasn't prepared to answer. Back in her quarters, Sarah activated her personal computer and began documenting everything she had seen. She encrypted the files and prepared to send them to Earth through the quantum communication array. But before she could transmit, her door chimed. "Dr. Chun." The voice belonged to Ambassador Crixtal. "May we speak?" Sarah's hands trembled as she closed the computer. "Of course, Ambassador. Please come in." The alien entered with 2 guards, their weapons clearly visible. Sarah's mouth went dry. "We have been monitoring the station's communication systems," Crixtal said without preamble. "There was an attempted transmission to Earth from your quarters. Unfortunately, the signal was incomplete." "I don't understand." Sarah said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "We believe there may be a malfunction in your communication equipment. For safety purposes, we will need to conduct a thorough inspection of your quarters and personal effects." The guards moved past her and began searching her room with military precision. One of them found her computer and immediately began examining its contents. "Ambassador," Sarah said carefully, "I was merely sending a routine report to my supervisors on Earth. Nothing that would require such an extensive investigation." Krickstall's 6 eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Of course. However, we have detected certain security vulnerabilities in the human communication protocols. Until these issues are resolved, all communication with Earth will need to be supervised." The guard examining her computer looked up and spoke in rapid Zephyrian. Krickstall's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Dr. Chun," the ambassador said slowly, "we believe it would be beneficial for you to undergo additional medical evaluation. There may be compatibility issues that require immediate attention." "I feel fine, Ambassador. Perhaps tomorrow would be better." "No." The word carried a finality that made Sarah's blood freeze. "Tonight. For your own safety, of course." The guards flanked her as they escorted her from her quarters. Sarah's mind raced as they walked through the corridors. Other humans they passed looked confused by the heavy escort, but none dared to question the ambassador directly. In the medical bay, the same technician who had drawn her blood earlier was waiting with a much larger collection apparatus. "This will only take a moment," the technician assured her in broken English. "For comprehensive analysis." Sarah looked at the collection bag. It was large enough to hold several pints of blood, far more than any routine test would require. "How much blood do you need?" she asked, hoping her voice didn't betray her growing panic. "Sufficient for thorough evaluation," Krickstall replied evasively. "Your cooperation is appreciated." As the needle entered her arm, and she felt her blood flowing out, Sarah realized that her situation was far worse than she had imagined. The Zephyrians weren't just studying human blood, they were harvesting it in massive quantities. And now they suspected that she knew too much. The room began to spin as more blood left her body than should be safe. Sarah fought to stay conscious, knowing that if she passed out now, she might never wake up. "Ambassador," she gasped, "this doesn't seem like a standard collection amount." "Human physiology is more robust than we initially calculated," Krickstall replied. "Your species has remarkable regenerative capabilities." Through her growing dizziness, Sarah managed to focus on the ambassador's words. The Zephyrians had discovered something about human blood that surprised them. Something about human regenerative capabilities that they hadn't expected. As consciousness began to slip away, Sarah heard the technician speaking in excited Zephyrian to the ambassador. Even through her translator implant's increasingly spotty function, she caught fragments of the conversation. Antibody structure completely unprecedented. Resistance mechanisms unlike anything in our database. May require complete revision of our timeline. The last thing Sarah remembered was Krickstall's final words before darkness claimed her. "Continue collection until we reach the critical threshold. We must understand how their immunity functions before we proceed with Phase 2. When Sarah woke, she was in a different room entirely. The walls were a sterile white that she didn't recognize, and medical equipment surrounded her bed. Most concerning was the 4-line in her arm that seemed to be drawing blood continuously into a collection system. A Zephyrian medic noticed her awakening and immediately called for Ambassador Krickstall. Within minutes, the diplomat appeared with several other aliens Sarah didn't recognize. "Dr. Chun," Krickstall said with what might have been relief in its voice. "You have recovered more quickly than we anticipated. This is encouraging." "Where am I?" Sarah asked, her voice hoarse from dehydration. "You are in our specialized medical facility. You experienced some complications during your evaluation, but you are recovering well." Sarah looked at the blood collection system. The container attached to her was nearly full, and, from what she could see, this wasn't the first one. "How long have I been unconscious?" "Approximately 72 standard hours. Your body has been regenerating blood at a rate that exceeds our most optimistic projections." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. The Zephyrians had been bleeding her continuously for 3 days, and her body had somehow kept up with the blood loss. No normal human should be able to survive that. "What did you discover?" she asked. deciding that direct questions might serve her better than continued pretense. Crickstal's 6 eyes widened slightly. You understand the nature of our research? I know you're not studying human blood for medical compatibility. I know you're trying to overcome some kind of resistance. And I know that whatever you found in our blood has surprised you. The ambassador was quiet for a long moment, studying her with all 6 eyes. You are correct, it finally admitted. We did not expect human blood to possess such remarkable properties. Your species' evolutionary history has produced immunity characteristics that are unprecedented in our experience. Immunity to what? Another pause. Then, Crickstal seemed to make a decision. Dr. Chun, your species was selected for this partnership because we believed humans would be suitable for our needs. We have a substance, a compound that allows us to exercise certain influences over biological systems. It has proven effective on every sentient species we have encountered. Sarah's heart began to race. Mind control, a crude term, but essentially accurate. However, human blood contains antibodies that completely neutralize our compound. Moreover, these antibodies seem to multiply and strengthen when exposed to the substance. So you can't control us. Worse than that, your blood actively destroys our compound. A single human could potentially neutralize enough of our substance to protect thousands of other beings. The full horror of the situation became clear to Sarah. The Zephyrians hadn't come to Earth seeking partnership. They had come seeking slaves. But human biology had proven resistant to their methods of control. How many other species have you enslaved? She asked. Crickstal's silence was answer enough. And now you're trying to find a way around our immunity. We are trying to understand it, the ambassador corrected. Your blood contains structures we have never encountered. Antibodies that seem to learn and adapt in real time. It is both fascinating and problematic for our long-term plans. Sarah felt a surge of pride despite her dire circumstances. Humanity's long history of surviving plagues and diseases had given them something the Zephyrians had never faced, an immune system that could adapt to completely novel threats. What happens now? She asked. Now we continue our research. You will remain here while we attempt to isolate and understand the mechanism behind your species' resistance. Other humans will join you shortly. You're kidnapping the entire crew? We are expanding our sample size. The variety in human genetic backgrounds may provide insights that individual study cannot. As if summoned by their conversation, the door opened, and 2 more humans were brought in, Dr. James Rodriguez from Engineering and Communications Officer Lisa Park. Both looked pale and confused, with fresh needle marks on their arms. Sarah, Dr. Rodriguez called out when he saw her. What's happening? They said this was routine medical monitoring, but they've been drawing blood for hours. Before Sarah could answer, Crickstal spoke. You will all be comfortable here while we complete our analysis. Your cooperation will be noted in our reports. Reports to whom? Lisa Park demanded. What reports? Crickstal's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. To our superiors, of course. The Zephyrian Empire has protocols for dealing with species that prove incompatible with our standard integration procedures. The word integration sent chills through Sarah's body. She was beginning to understand that the Zephyrians' true purpose went far beyond simple conquest. As night fell over Research Station Omega 7, Sarah lay in her medical bed listening to the hum of the blood collection equipment. Every few minutes, she could hear similar machines in neighboring rooms, drawing blood from other members of the crew. But something inside her was changing. She could feel it in her bloodstream, a growing strength that seemed to intensify with each passing hour. The continuous blood loss should have been weakening her, but instead she felt more alert and energetic than she had in weeks. Through the observation window, she could see Zephyrian scientists working frantically with their equipment. Their body language suggested growing frustration and concern. Whatever they had discovered in human blood, it was not giving them the answers they had hoped for. And Sarah suspected that was only the beginning of their problems. As she drifted off to sleep, Sarah's last conscious thought was of her grandmother's stories about surviving the Hong Kong flu. The old woman had always said that their family's blood was special, that they came from survivors. Now Sarah was beginning to understand just how special that blood might be. Sarah woke to the sound of alarms blaring throughout the facility. The red emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the medical bay, and she could hear Zephyrian voices shouting in panic down the corridors. Dr. Rodriguez was already awake in the bed next to her, his eyes wide with confusion. "Sarah, what's happening?" The alarm started about 10 minutes ago. Before she could answer, the door burst open and Ambassador Crixtal rushed in with several armed guards. The diplomat's usual calm demeanor was completely gone, replaced by something that looked remarkably like fear. "Dr. Chun," Crixtal said urgently, "we need to conduct additional tests immediately." "What kind of tests?" Sarah asked, noting that the blood collection bag attached to her fore was empty. Despite having been bled continuously for days, she felt stronger than ever. "Your blood chemistry has changed," one of the Zephyrian scientists reported, consulting a data pad with shaking hands. "The antibody structures are evolving faster than our equipment can analyze them." Sarah sat up in bed, surprised by how steady she felt. "Evolving how?" "They appear to be learning from exposure to our compound," Crixtal admitted. "Each time we introduce a modified version of our control substance, your antibodies adapt within hours to neutralize it." "That's impossible," Dr. Rodriguez interjected. "Human immune systems don't work that fast." The ambassador's 6 eyes focused on him with an intensity that made the engineer shrink back. "Human immune systems, as we understood them, should not work that way. But Dr. Chin's blood is demonstrating capabilities that exceed all known biological parameters." Sarah felt a strange tingling in her veins, as if her blood was moving faster than normal. "What exactly are you saying?" "We are saying that your blood is actively fighting back," the scientist reported. "Not just neutralizing our compound, but creating new antibodies that seem designed specifically to hunt and destroy it." The implications of this revelation sent a chill through Sarah's mind. Her immune system wasn't just resisting the Zephyrian control substance, it was waging an active war against it. "We need fresh samples," Crixtal announced, "from all 3 subjects. The variation in human genetics may explain the accelerating adaptation rate." As the medical technicians prepared new collection equipment, Sarah noticed something that made her heart race. The needle marks on her arms from the previous days were completely gone. Not healed. Gone, as if they had never existed. Dr. Rodriguez seemed to notice the same thing. "Sarah," he whispered, "look at your arms." "How is that possible?" Before she could respond, the technician inserted a new needle into her arm. But instead of the usual sting, Sarah felt nothing. She watched in fascination as the needle bent against her skin, unable to penetrate. "The dermal resistance has increased significantly," the technician reported in Zephyrian. "Standard collection methods are no longer effective." Crixtal moved closer, studying Sarah's arm with all 6 eyes. "Try the enhanced penetration device." The new needle was clearly different, larger, and with some kind of energy field around the tip. When it touched Sarah's skin, there was a brief flash of light, but the needle still couldn't break through. "Ambassador," the scientist said nervously, "her skin has somehow become impenetrable to our standard medical equipment." Sarah stared at her arm in amazement. She could feel something happening beneath her skin, as if her blood cells were actively reinforcing her body's defenses. "This is unprecedented," Crixtal muttered. "No species has ever adapted this rapidly to our presence." The alarm suddenly stopped, replaced by a new sound, the deep, resonant tone that indicated a station-wide emergency broadcast. "All Zephyrian personnel report to designated evacuation zones immediately," came the announcement in the aliens' musical language. "Biological contamination protocols are now in effect." Sarah's translator implant converted the words, but it was the tone of panic in the announcement that truly caught her attention. "Biological contamination?" she asked. "What kind of contamination?" Crixtal's expression shifted to something between anger and fear. "Dr. Chen, we believe your blood may have properties that extend beyond simple immunity. Our laboratory analysis suggests that human antibodies can survive outside the body and continue to function autonomously." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. "You mean our blood can fight your control substance even when it's not inside us?" "Worse than that. The antibodies appear to be airborne. They have somehow found their way into our facility's atmosphere and are actively destroying any trace of our compound they encounter." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward, his engineer's mind immediately grasping the implications. You're saying human blood is essentially creating an anti-mind control field around the station? That is precisely what we are saying, the scientist confirmed. And the field appears to be expanding. Sarah felt a surge of pride mixed with growing alarm. Humanity's evolutionary history of surviving plagues hadn't just given them immunity. It had given them the ability to protect others from biological threats they had never encountered. How far has it spread? She asked. The contamination, the protective field, has already reached 3 levels of our research facility, Crixtal admitted. Our compound is being neutralized faster than we can produce it. Through the observation window, Sarah could see Zephyrian personnel running through the corridors carrying equipment and data storage devices. Their usual graceful movements were replaced by urgent, almost panicked gestures. Ambassador, Dr. Rodriguez said carefully, what happens when your superiors find out that humans can't be controlled? The silence that followed was more telling than any words could have been. The Zephyrian Empire has protocols, Crixtal finally said. Species that cannot be integrated are classified as potential threats. And what happens to potential threats? Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. They are eliminated, the ambassador replied simply, before they can spread their resistance to other species. The medical bay fell silent except for the humming of equipment and the distant sounds of evacuation procedures. Sarah realized that their situation had just become far more dire than simple kidnapping or medical experimentation. How long do we have? She asked. The Imperial fleet is already en route, Crixtal admitted. They will arrive within 72 standard hours. To destroy Earth? To sterilize it. The Empire cannot risk human immunity spreading to our other subject species. Dr. Rodriguez stood up from his bed, pulling the 4-line from his arm. Like Sarah, he showed no signs of weakness despite days of blood loss. Then, we need to get out of here and warn Earth. Impossible, one of the guards said in broken English. Station lockdown. No communications permitted. But Sarah was no longer listening to the Zephyrians. She was focused on the strange sensations in her body. Her blood seemed to be flowing faster and stronger than ever before. When she concentrated, she could almost feel individual antibodies moving through her veins, seeking out and destroying any foreign substances they encountered. More importantly, she could sense something else, a connection to the other humans on the station. It was faint, like a whisper at the edge of consciousness, but it was definitely there. Rodriguez, she said quietly, can you feel that? The engineer paused in his examination of the medical equipment. Feel what? The connection. To the other crew members. Dr. Rodriguez closed his eyes and concentrated. After a moment, his eyes snapped open in surprise. I can sense them. Lisa, Captain Morrison, the others. How is that possible? Crixtal overheard their conversation and moved closer. What connection? Explain this phenomenon. I don't know how to explain it, Sarah said honestly. But I can sense where the other humans are. And I think they can sense us too. The ambassador exchanged rapid words with the scientist, who immediately began scanning Sarah and Rodriguez with a handheld device. Fascinating, the scientist reported. Their neural activity is synchronized despite being separated by significant distances. The antibodies appear to be creating some form of biological communication network. A hive mind? Crixtal asked. No, Sarah said firmly. Not a hive mind. More like enhanced awareness. I'm still myself, but I can sense the others. She closed her eyes and concentrated on the connection. Immediately, she could feel Lisa Park's presence 2 floors above, along with Captain Morrison and the rest of the crew. But more than that, she could sense their emotional states, fear, confusion, but also a growing strength similar to what she was experiencing. Through the connection, she tried to send a message, we need to work together. The response came back immediately, not in words but in shared understanding. All around the station, 17 humans were experiencing the same evolution of their immune systems and the same growing connection to each other. Dr. Chun, Crixtal said urgently, we are detecting energy patterns throughout the station. What are you doing? I'm not doing anything, Sarah replied honestly. My body is doing what it evolved to do, protecting itself and others from biological threats. This goes far beyond simple immunity. the scientist muttered, studying his readings. They are functioning as a collective immune system for multiple organisms. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just evolved immunity to diseases. They had evolved the ability to share that immunity with others when threatened. Suddenly, the lights in the medical bay flickered and died, replaced by the dull red glow of emergency power. Main power has been lost, came an announcement in Zephyrian. All personnel evacuate to emergency shuttles immediately. Through the darkened corridors, Sarah could hear the sounds of rapid footsteps and shouted orders. The Zephyrians were abandoning their research facility. What's happening? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Ambassador Crixtal consulted a communication device with growing alarm. The antibody field has reached our primary power systems. The biological contamination is interfering with our technology. Sarah felt a moment of vertigo as she realized what this meant. Human antibodies weren't just neutralizing the Zephyrian mind control substance. They were somehow affecting Zephyrian technology itself. How is that possible, she asked. We believe your antibodies are targeting any foreign biological or technological signature, the scientist explained, his voice shaking. Our technology incorporates organic components that your immune system recognizes as threats. Dr. Rodriguez smiled grimly. So human blood is essentially treating your entire technological infrastructure as a disease to be eliminated. Precisely. And the effect is accelerating as more humans develop the enhanced antibody response. Through their shared connection, Sarah could feel the other crew members growing stronger. Captain Morrison had somehow freed himself from the medical restraints and was making his way toward their location. Lisa Park and the others were also on the move. Ambassador, Sarah said, standing up from her bed with surprising ease. I think you should evacuate with your people. We cannot leave without completing our research, Crixtal protested. The Empire must understand how to counter this immunity before the fleet arrives. I don't think you have a choice, Dr. Rodriguez pointed out as sparks began shooting from the medical equipment around them. Sarah could feel her connection to the other humans growing stronger by the minute. Soon they would be able to coordinate their actions perfectly. And, based on what she was sensing from the others, they were all experiencing the same rapid physical enhancements that she had developed. The station's structural integrity is becoming compromised, the scientist reported. The biological field is affecting our construction materials as well. Through the observation window, Sarah could see cracks appearing in the walls as the Zephyrian materials began to fail. Whatever was happening to human biology was turning them into living weapons against anything the Zephyrians had created. You need to leave, she told Crixtal firmly. And you need to tell your fleet what you discovered here. What did we discover? The ambassador asked. Sarah felt the presence of her fellow humans growing closer, their shared strength flowing through her veins like liquid fire. You discovered that humanity doesn't just survive biological threats, she said. We eliminate them completely. And we protect others while we do it. The evacuation alarms had stopped, leaving Research Station Omega 7 in an eerie silence broken only by the occasional groan of failing structural supports. Sarah stood in the abandoned medical bay, watching through the observation window as the last Zephyrian shuttle disappeared into the star field. Dr. Rodriguez checked the communication equipment that the aliens had left behind in their hasty retreat. Most of it's fried, he reported. But I think I can get the quantum transmitter working. Through their enhanced connection, Sarah could sense all 17 members of the human crew converging on the central command center. Captain Morrison's presence felt strongest, followed by Lisa Park and Chief Engineer Walsh. Each of them radiated the same inexplicable vitality that Sarah had been experiencing. Any word on how long we have before the Zephyrian fleet arrives? She asked. According to the data they left behind, approximately 60 hours. Captain Morrison's voice came through their neural link rather than the intercom. The sensation was still unsettling, but Sarah was learning to adapt to their new method of communication. She made her way to the command center, passing through corridors where Zephyrian technology continued to fail at an accelerating rate. Light panels flickered and died as she walked past, and she could see hairline fractures spreading through the alien metal walls. In the command center, she found the rest of the crew gathered around the main console. Everyone looked remarkably healthy considering the ordeal they had endured. Lisa Park's skin had a subtle glow to it, Chief Walsh's graying hair seemed to have returned to its original brown color. "Report," Captain Morrison said, though he already knew much of what had happened through their shared awareness. "The Zephyrians came here to enslave humanity using some kind of biological mind control substance," Sarah began, speaking aloud for the benefit of maintaining normal protocols. "Human blood produces antibodies that not only resist the substance, but actively hunt and destroy it. And these antibodies can survive outside our bodies," Dr. Rodriguez added. "They've created a protective field around the entire station that neutralizes Zephyrian technology." Captain Morrison studied the abandoned alien equipment with growing understanding. "So we're essentially a biological weapon against their entire technological infrastructure." "It's more than that," Sarah said, feeling the truth of it through her connection to the others. "I think we've become something new. Something that can protect other species from Zephyrian control." Chief Walsh looked up from a Zephyrian data terminal he had somehow managed to activate. "I'm reading their research files. They've enslaved hundreds of species across this galaxy. Entire civilizations reduced to worker populations under their mental control. Until they met us," Lisa Park said grimly. "The question is, what do we do about their fleet?" Captain Morrison asked. 60 hours isn't much time to prepare for an invasion force." Sarah closed her eyes and reached out through their neural network, feeling the enhanced capabilities that each crew member had developed. Rodriguez's engineering knowledge had somehow been amplified to an almost superhuman level. Walsh's understanding of alien technology had expanded exponentially. Lisa's communication skills now included an intuitive grasp of dozens of alien languages. "I don't think we need to prepare," Sarah said slowly. "I think we just need to be what we've become." "Explain," the captain ordered. Sarah opened her eyes and looked at her hands. She could see her pulse beneath the skin, but it wasn't just blood flowing through her veins. It was something more complex, something that seemed to carry information and energy along with oxygen and nutrients. "The Zephyrians weren't wrong about humans being special," she said. "Our evolutionary history didn't just give us strong immune systems. It gave us the ability to adapt rapidly to novel threats and share those adaptations with others." Dr. Rodriguez nodded, understanding dawning in his expression. "We're not just immune to their mind control. We're immune to their entire biological and technological paradigm. And our immunity is contagious," Chief Walsh added, studying the alien data. "According to these files, every species the Zephyrians tested showed some resistance after exposure to human blood." Sarah felt a surge of excitement through their shared connection. "That's it. We're not just weapons against the Zephyrians, we're teachers. We can show other species how to resist." Captain Morrison activated the quantum communication array, which functioned despite the technological failures affecting other Zephyrian equipment. "Let's get a message to Earth first. Then, we can worry about liberating the galaxy." The transmission to Earth took several minutes to establish, but eventually the familiar face of Admiral Harrison appeared on the screen. The officer looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept in days. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Harrison said with obvious relief, "we've been trying to reach you for weeks. The Zephyrians cut off all communication after your last routine check-in." "Admiral, we have a situation that requires immediate attention," Morrison replied. "The Zephyrian Alliance is not what it appears to be. They're a conquering species that uses biological mind control to enslave other civilizations." The Admiral's expression shifted to one of grave concern. "Explain." Morrison quickly outlined their discoveries while Sarah and the others worked to download the Zephyrian research data. As the captain spoke, Sarah became aware of something disturbing. She could sense Admiral Harrison's emotional state through the quantum link, and what she felt was not surprise. "Admiral," she interrupted, "did you know about this?" Harrison's pause was answer enough. "Dr. Chun, we suspected the Zephyrians might have ulterior motives. That's why we established the research station, to study them as much as they studied us." "You used us as test subjects," Chief Walsh said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "We needed to understand their capabilities. What we discovered exceeded our worst fears." Captain Morrison leaned forward. "What did you discover?" 3 days ago, several Zephyrian diplomatic missions around the world attempted to release their control substance into major population centers. The substance had no effect on humans, but We detected it in the air and water supplies. Sarah felt the blood in her veins seem to sing with energy. They were trying to control all of humanity at once. The attempt failed completely, Admiral Harrison continued. Not only were humans unaffected, but the substance broke down almost immediately in the presence of human biological material. Even airborne human skin cells were enough to neutralize it. Dr. Rodriguez smiled grimly. So we're already protecting Earth just by existing. More than that, the Admiral said. Our atmospheric monitoring stations detected human antibodies in the air itself. Somehow, human immune responses are becoming part of Earth's ecosystem. Through their shared awareness, Sarah could feel the other crew members processing this information. They weren't just individuals who had developed enhanced immunity. They were part of a species-wide evolutionary leap that was making their entire planet hostile to Zephyrian influence. Admiral, Captain Morrison said, there's a Zephyrian battle fleet heading for Earth. They'll arrive in approximately 58 hours. We know. Our deep space monitoring systems detected them 6 hours ago. How are we preparing? Chief Walsh asked. Admiral Harrison's expression became grim. We're not. Dr. Chun, your research station has become something unprecedented. According to our readings, the entire structure is generating an energy field that's expanding at measurable speed. Sarah looked around the command center, suddenly understanding what the Admiral meant. The failing Zephyrian technology wasn't just breaking down, it was being actively transformed by human biological influence. The station is becoming human, she breathed. More than that, Admiral Harrison said. Our scientists believe that prolonged exposure to enhanced human immunity is converting alien technology into something that serves human biological needs rather than alien ones. Dr. Rodriguez moved to a Zephyrian console that was still partially functional. As he touched the interface, Sarah watched in fascination as the alien symbols on the screen shifted and changed, becoming readable human text. The technology is adapting to us, Rodriguez reported with wonder in his voice. It's learning to interface with human biology instead of Zephyrian. Captain Morrison turned back to the communication screen. Admiral, what are our orders? Wait for the fleet to arrive, Harrison replied. Based on what we've learned, your presence may be enough to neutralize their threat without any direct action on our part. And if it's not enough? Sarah asked. Then, we hope that 17 enhanced humans can do what an entire planetary defense system cannot. As the communication ended, Sarah felt a new sensation through their neural network. It wasn't coming from any of the crew members. It was coming from outside the station entirely. Do you feel that? She asked the others. One by one, they nodded. Through their enhanced awareness, they could sense other biological signatures approaching. But these weren't human. Ships, Lisa Park said, her communication abilities allowing her to interpret the sensations more clearly. But not Zephyrian. Something else. Chief Walsh quickly accessed the station's sensors. Multiple vessels approaching from different vectors. The signatures don't match anything in our databases. Through the observation deck's massive windows, Sarah could see lights appearing in the star field. Dozens of ships were emerging from hyperspace around the station, but their designs were unlike anything she had ever seen. Captain, came a voice through the communication system, but not in any language Sarah recognized. Somehow, through their enhanced abilities, they could understand it anyway. This is Captain Morrison. Identify yourselves. We are the Free Coalition, the voice replied. We detected the liberation signal from this location. Liberation signal? Morrison asked. The biological field that neutralizes Zephyrian control technology. We have been waiting generations for such a signal. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as the implications became clear. How many species has the Zephyrian Empire enslaved? 417 civilizations, came the reply. Until now, resistance was impossible. But your species has created something that can free us all. Through the neural network, Sarah could feel the excitement and determination of her fellow crew members. They weren't just facing a Zephyrian invasion. They were in a position to liberate an entire galaxy. How many ships do you have? Captain Morrison asked. Every free vessel in this sector of the galaxy. Over 3,000 ships representing 47 different species. All immune to Zephyrian control as long as we remain within range of your biological field. Dr. Rodriguez was studying the sensor readings with growing amazement. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from these ships. They're not just refugees, they're a battle fleet. We are more than a battle fleet, the coalition representative said. We are every species the Zephyrians believe they had permanently enslaved. Your blood has given us back our freedom, and we intend to use it. Through the observation windows, Sarah could see the massive armada taking defensive positions around the station. Ships of every conceivable design filled the space around them, from sleek vessels that seemed to be made of living crystal to massive dreadnoughts covered in organic-looking armor. The Zephyrian Imperial fleet will arrive in 46 hours, Captain Morrison announced. We will be ready, came the reply. And, with your people providing biological support, the Zephyrians will finally face opponents they cannot control. Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction flow through her enhanced bloodstream. Humanity's long evolutionary battle against disease and biological threats had prepared them for something far greater than anyone had imagined. As she watched the Free Coalition fleet arrange itself into battle formation, she realized that Earth's children were about to help free an entire galaxy from slavery. The Zephyrians had come seeking to control humanity, but instead they had awakened something that would end their empire forever. In her veins, she could feel the antibodies that had started this revolution continuing to evolve and strengthen. Soon, every species in the coalition fleet would carry traces of human immunity in their own biological systems. The Zephyrians had studied human blood after poisoning them, seeking to understand antibodies that defied all logic. What they had discovered was that humanity was evolution's answer to biological tyranny, and that answer was about to spread across the stars.